Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for today's episode of Real Estate Disruptors. Today we have Charles Nguyen, the Facilitator, and he flew in from Houston to talk about how he quit his comfy corporate job and did wholesale on the side until he was able to go full time. If this is your first time tuning in, I am Steve Trang, broker and owner of Stunning Homes Realty, founder of the OfferFast Homes app, the only MLS for off-market wholesale properties, which will be launching in Texas in just a couple of weeks in Houston. And I'm on a mission to create 100 millionaires, so let's connect on Instagram, steve.trang, if you're interested in joining the mission. If you're excited for today's show, please give me a wave, give me a thumbs up, and as a friendly reminder, I don't charge a dime for this show. I don't make any money doing this. So here's all I ask. This is what it costs for you guys to listen to this show. I am trying to get some really stupid, big names on the show, and I've been told by a consultant I need to get 500 5-star reviews in iTunes in order to make that happen. So please do me a favor, when you can, go to iTunes, subscribe, give a 5-star review so I can help get some even bigger names on the show. And if you could write a review, what you like on the show, that's even better. And this is a live show, so please post your questions for Charles to answer. You ready?
Yep, let's drop some value.
All right, that sounds good. So first question is, what got you into real estate?
So what got me into real estate? It's time. That's, to me, the most valuable commodity that we have. Mm-hmm. It's you use it up, you're never going to get it back. Yeah. So I'm probably a very stereotypical person in the sense that was a corporate guy all my life, mm-hmm. and I legitimately worked probably the 100 hours a week in investment banking. So I just needed to do something where I can spend more time with the family, and that's kind of what drove me to start looking at other avenues to do something besides sit in front of the computer all day. And
so, grew up, parents told you had to go to college, all right, get a degree,
yes,
and get a good job,
yes,
and you did all those things,
yes,
and you were loving it,
yes,
until
yeah. So I mean, I grew up the stereotypical Asian. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't figured out by my last name or kind of my skin tone, then I'm Asian. And I grew up exactly like you said. Good grades, right? Mm-hmm. Probably, I'm guessing similar to you. If I came home with 100, my dad would probably say, well, what's wrong? They didn't give extra points?
No extra credit?
No extra credit, yeah. So then I started, long story short, but getting back to the corporate world, I was working a whole lot, and then I was like, well, I'm spending a lot of time, I enjoy doing it, but also spending a lot of time building someone else's business, whereas, I look back now, and for sure, I was neglecting kind of my family. I had a wife, I also have 2 kids now, so it's, doing things that were taking me away from all of them. And,
So how many kids did you have when you made the conscious decision?
I had 2 kids. Okay. Yeah, so I had both of them.
So you're working how many hours a week?
I was probably, at that time, probably between 80 to 90 hours a week.
Really?
Yeah,
No. What kind of job is this?
So I was a director of IT at a major investment bank. So I pretty much looked after the trading floor for commodities. So my job.
That's not just a lot of time. That's really stressful.
Yes, very stressful. Everybody's right. We literally see billions of dollars floating across our screen all day, and it's like, hey, somebody walk up, hey, you just cost me $10 million. So that's what we dealt with all day.
Yeah.
And
so a lot of people have a hard time quitting, a good job, right? They're making good money and they have a hard time to quit. So just to put it into perspective, like when you made the decision, like this is not for me, I'm going to go do something different. How much were you making?
So I was well over 6 figures, mm-hmm. probably multiple 6 figures. So it
really?
was, yeah. So it's, I made good money.
Yeah.
And, and I was, most people in Houston who know me and know my personality and profile know I'm a really humble guy. Mm-hmm. Like I really don't, coming on here is kind of even, outside of my comfort zone because I'm not really used to talking about myself, mm-hmm. much less good things. Yeah, that just not my personality.
But multiple 6 figures.
Yeah.
And this is not for me.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So then you decided real estate.
Yes.
And then did you immediately go into wholesale, or you're just like, I want to buy some rental properties? Like, what was that journey like?
Yeah. So the first thing was I did look at other things. I looked at franchises. I looked at opening other businesses. And then actually someone who worked for me, he actually gave me some advice, right? He's from India, in Asia. And so what he said was his ancestors would tell him, you can't go wrong with buying dirt, which is basically his way of saying, go look at real estate.
Right.
So then I looked at it and I was like, it makes perfect sense, right? Because, coming from an investment banking arena, it's like, okay, I can't buy stocks at a discount. I can leverage a little bit with margins, but you can't really leverage like you can with real estate.
No.
And with the tax implications and, just appreciation, it's like real estate made perfect sense.
Yeah.
Did I start off wanting to be a wholesaler? No way. Actually, it was probably the last thing I would think I wanted to do, because I always wanted to buy and hold real estate. Right. In reality, I first started off with saying, I'm going to go buy apartments, right? Because that was all the rage, and it was just like, for what?
What year was this?
It was probably 2013.
Okay.
So I was...
Because it's still a rage.
Yes.
It's been a rage for like 6 years.
Yes, it's a big rage.
Yeah.
So I went through lots of training about apartments, but what kind of stopped me a little bit from going forward with apartments is because it just would take a long time to get a deal. So for me, it's like, okay, if it's going to take me a year to go get a deal, then that kind of doesn't fit my personality in terms of, I come from investment banking, so I'm a bit aggressive when it comes to,
Oh, I can't picture you being aggressive.
It's almost, in corporate world, I'm almost a different person than I am outside of the corporate world. I'm just a completely different person. I'm mellow, laid back.
Right.
But when it gets to like go and get stuff done, then it's like
interesting. So I got to talk to you like the people that work for you, see how Charles is, the
Yes.
real Charles is.
Yes.
So it's funny you mentioned franchising, right? Because I mentioned before was Robert Allen's multiple streams of income. And one thing he talks about there is MLM, which I think is good for a lot of people that are getting started to any kind of industry. But he also talks about franchises. And so I had that when I was at Intel. I was like, this is boring. I can't do this. I was playing poker, right, to make extra money, just for variety. But he talks about franchising. And so I was looking at the franchises, and they all were terrible. Like, you had to have, basically everything that was any good was Molly made. Because if you wanted to just do a Jamba Juice, you had to have like a proven record of 75 successful franchises and $300,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
So there weren't really a lot of good franchise options. So it was interesting that you went through that same journey.
Oh yeah.
As well.
I looked at it. I looked at the big ones I started looking at was Subways, because everybody has a
Everyone's
Subway.
got a Subway.
And then I even looked at Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A was, but their model is just completely different. So
it's not
like,
really franchising.
Yeah. It's you're kind of paying to manage a store for them.
It's like running a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I was like, nah, let me just go look at real estate.
Okay, so then at what point did you say, all right, apartments is not it, so wholesale? Like, did you decide then to buy like houses, or did you decide wholesale? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so what I decided to do, I still wanted to go do lots of buy and holds, because when I really look at it, I was just like, I wanted to do things where I didn't have to spend a whole lot of time. And almost when I looked at it, I was like, well, wholesaling, it just didn't kind of fit with me, and almost because I didn't know enough about it back then. So then what I started doing was just starting to market and learning how to market, and then start building systems, because I'm an IT background, so I build systems and processes. And then it slowly just evolved into, well, I have a wholesaling business, whatever I want to call it. If I'm generating leads and go and get houses under contract, whether I sell it to myself or someone else, then effectively I've got a wholesaling business.
Right.
So it became where I built an engine, and it's like, well, I can't stop the engine. It just has to keep on going.
So what's interesting is you were wholesaling on the side.
Yep.
But you hired a virtual assistant before you quit.
Yes.
Like the traditional avenue is you do wholesale, you got a couple of deals. All right, peace out. I'm quitting this job. I'm going to start my own thing. And then as you ramp up some more, then you hire the assistant. And probably a physical assistant, not even a virtual assistant.
Yeah.
What happened here?
Okay, so for me, it was in the beginning, and I'll probably say I made every mistake that every investor, we talk about every new investor makes. I probably made every single one. The biggest one for me was I was doing everything myself. I mean, everything. I mean, it was pretty. I mean, it was fun because it was new, and my personality type, I wanted to learn. So I'm going to go try and do everything.
Yeah.
And also, the thing I'm learning even more recently about myself, given all the profiling that I'm looking at and reading about, is my personality is, it's hard for me to delegate. Extremely hard for me to delegate.
Really?
Yes. My natural tendency would be, I'm going to try and do everything myself because it's almost the expert mentality. I can do it better than if I hand it off.
Which is the opposite, because you and I were talking about predictive index.
Yes.
And you had me take it.
Yes.
And I said the one thing I love to do.
Yes.
is delegate.
Exactly. And because I think our personalities are very similar.
Yeah.
The kind of the difference, the big differences I see is you're much better at delegating than I am.
Lazier. Much lazier.
Yeah, or smarter. And also, I think in risk taking, I'm kind of a by the book, kind of risk averse type of person, whereas you might be a little bit more.
Is that why you hired the assistant before you quit your job?
Yes. Well, and I also hired her because she did 40 hours of work a week while I was still at the corporate job.
Wow.
So it was, and I'll tell you what happened that made me hire her is because for a long time, every night, right, the kids go to bed at 9. So, that 9 to 2 a.m. time frame, that's when I did real estate. So
really?
Oh, yeah, and the weekends. So for about 3 days straight, every day the same thing happened. It's, right around 9:30, 10 o'clock, I'm on the computer and I'm thinking, okay, what do I do now? Do I generate a marketing list? Do I submit an offer to somebody I talked to earlier in the day, or do I respond to the title company about what they're asking for? And every day it was the same thing. I was like, by the third day, I was just like, I'm done. I'm just going to hire somebody to take care of all this stuff. So then pretty much the next day I was like, okay, I'm going to go find a service to take care of, to help me find somebody who's going to do 40 hours of work, 40 hours a week of work for me. Yeah. And so then I went through the hiring process, and here's one thing I recommend. For me, I went through a service, and some people say go through Upwork, and nothing wrong with that. For me, it all boiled down to time. The one thing I realized now that I probably didn't even know back then was that if I go with the service, they will take care of a lot of infrastructure things with a virtual assistant that I wouldn't have thought of, like backup internet, backup power, making sure they show up on time, and those types of things. And coaching.
Health insurance.
Yes, the health card.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I definitely paid more than what normal people would pay, but because I went through a service, and they took care of all that, and I didn't have to worry about it. I was like, nowadays I'm like, thank goodness.
So is she still with you?
Yes.
Wow.
4 years.
Wow.
Next month.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, she's probably not listening right now because she's actually on the way to the U.S. Embassy to try and get her visa.
Oh, cool.
She's got a flight to Houston next week. But
that's awesome.
Yeah. So
I look forward to meeting her.
Yeah. So, if everything goes right at
First
the
side
end,
of the story might be a little different.
Yeah. So,
okay. So then you hired this virtual assistant, and now you're off and running. Well, I guess how many deals were you doing before you decided to hire the virtual assistant?
So let me walk back a little bit in terms of what I was doing. I was doing a deal probably every couple of months because, again, I did everything, I wouldn't say the wrong way, but just when you're talking about when people make mistakes, that's what I did. I'd get a deal. I wouldn't do anything else but work on that one deal. And then the next thing you know, it's like, okay, a couple months later, it's like, oh, I need to go do another deal.
Yeah.
All right. And it's like, oh, okay, I got to start marketing. And then, all right, I wouldn't do another. It takes a little bit of lag time. Yeah. So I was probably doing I can't remember at that time. It was probably a deal or two, a deal every couple months, right? And then once she came on, then she was basically 40 hours a week. Yeah. Doing, making calls.
So how much were you making? Okay, so you hired her, and she's helping you ramp up. So you ramp up to what after you hired her?
So, okay. And then also the other quick thing to mention as well is when I first started off, I wasn't doing what I would call wholesaling. I was doing deals because I was really into creative financing. So like my first deal, I did a subject to and did the owner finance wrap on the back end. And I'm like, I don't know if I recommend that to anyone on their very first deal, but I also had mentors that helped me.
Right.
So, so my deals were a little different back then, where they were almost all creative, because that's just what I was kind of taught and grew up on.
What was it? It's the reticular activator, right? Like you see whatever you know.
Exactly. Yeah. So everything looked like a deal, because it's how can I structure it to be a deal.
Right.
No equity, that's perfectly okay too.
Yeah.
We could just take a subject too.
Okay, so now you hired her, and she ramps you up to what? So
in let's say 2016, so I was probably doing like in the neighborhood about it got up to about 3 to 4 deals a month.
Okay.
And then also my business model got a little different in 2016 as well, because at that probably end of 2015, I had a particular deal where I was actually in Florida at a seminar, and then I had a very hot internet lead come in, and they came in at 3 a.m. So those are generally for me the hottest leads. If they're up at 3 a.m. and reaching out, so I talked to them for a couple minutes, and then I was like, okay, their price wasn't in my range. So then, but I said, I'll shoot you an offer anyway. So then I shot them an offer, and then I was like, here's my offer. And then they ended up calling me back a couple of hours later and saying, hey, you're a little off, but it might be close enough. So I'm in Florida, and I was like, okay, this is a deal. And I'm like, how do I get it done from Florida? And I happened to be with one of my buddies, and he said, well, just call so-and-so and have him go out. I was like, okay, that's brilliant. So then I called him up and said, hey, do you mind going to take a look at this house for me and put it under contract? He said, absolutely. So he went out, locked it up, and he actually put together a pretty good deal where the owner was going to carry. And right, so we did that. And then afterwards, when I got back, he's like, hey, do you mind if I sell it? And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. So then he ended up selling it, and I never saw the house. And I ended up, we actually closed and then sold it on MLS. I never talked to the seller. I never talked to any of the buyers or any of the agents. And then I was like, okay, this is much better than going out to houses.
Yeah.
So then I started shifting my model to say, hey, I don't really want to go to houses anymore. Let me go focus on what I do really well, which is go generate leads and put in systems and processes.
Gotcha. So, because I'm trying to get some lessons, right, for the people that are listening right now that have jobs.
Yep.
So, what are the big takeaways?
So for me, I will tell you, the big takeaway is don't be afraid to get help. So like my very first deal, I will tell you, I went to the house. I had no idea what to say to the seller, even though I kind of knew, but that was my first time really talking to a motivated seller. But I had, at that time, my mentor with me, Ray Sasser. He's OG from Houston.
How did you find your mentor while you were working?
So I went to a ton of classes. I mean, there were some people who saw me at virtually every class that there was in Houston.
So you're working 80 hours a week, and when you're not working, you're going to do these things.
Yes.
Do your kids even know who you were?
They did not.
No?
No. And that's a really good point, too, is if you're doing this and you want to go really far, make sure your significant other is fully on board.
Yeah.
Because that was the first thing I did after I figured out that I wanted to do real estate.
Yeah, because I remember still, when I was a kid, I think I was 7, and the second oldest, I have 5 younger brothers, but the second oldest was my dad was working his job, going to community college, and then running the restaurant that we opened that was an absolute failure, right? And I remember my dad would come home and try to pick up my little brother, and he would cry because who is this guy?
Yeah.
Trying to pick me up.
Yes. No, absolutely, 100%. I'll tell you just a quick story of what hit for me is after I left corporate America, and because I was never really around, right?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I worked too much. One of the things that really hit me was 2 different instances. One, My daughter, she's the older one. One day after I can't remember, it might have been a month after I left, so they saw me a lot more. And she's like, "Hey, Dad, can we have a chat?" I'm like, "Wait, what?"
How old is she?
At the time, she was probably, must have been 8 or 9. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm dropping everything I'm doing.
Yeah.
And something happened very similar with my son as well, because I'd go pick him up, and occasionally I go pick him up with my wife, and then if my wife was there, then he's running and giving her a hug.
Yeah.
When I pick him up, it's kind of like, oh, it's that guy.
Yeah.
So one day, out of the blue, he came and ran and gave me a hug when I picked him up, and to me, that's why we do what we do, is get time back and create memories like that.
Absolutely. Okay, so then you were doing pretty well, and then you decided to, tell this job to take it back, or I'm out of here.
Right.
What was that like? What was the mindset? What was the process? And because I can say for myself, right? I talked to all my friends and my parents, right? Like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm quitting, and I didn't have reliable income. I just quit, right? It goes back to that risk tolerance you're talking about.
Yep.
So, what was your process in trying to find support or having that conversation and talking to your close loved ones?
Yeah, so that's very interesting because I'm not sure if yours was the same as mine, but kind of like family and friends who are not in real estate. Then when I would talk to them, they look at me like, wait, say that again? You're about to leave your job to go flip houses? Like, okay, let's sit down and have a talk.
Yeah.
Right. So then what I realized is, I can't really have those type of conversations with people who are not in the industry because they don't. It's not their fault because they care about you. They think you might be doing something crazy.
They're raised in the same environment we were raised in.
Exactly. So then, what the conversations I would have like that would be with my, it's real estate buddies, and it's a different conversation with them because it's every time I would see them, it's like, hey, when are you quitting your job?
Yeah.
It's just a completely different conversation.
There's a video of Max Maxwell, Scott Oots, and Brian Aregpu, and where they were like they ambushed him. I was like, when are you quitting your job? And I talked to Brian about that. He's like, I didn't even know the camera was on. It was like a very personal.
Oh wow. Okay, so it was real.
It was real, yeah, for sure.
Wow.
So you talked to your close people that you care about. They said don't do it, which was just like what my friends and family said. And then you talked to other people that said, when are you quitting?
Exactly.
And that was the impetus you needed.
Yes. And then also, and I'll also give credit. I mean, a lot of my business, I grew up on your last guest, Sean Terry. I mean, I watched a lot of his videos. I grew up on his podcast as well as I went to one of his events and
Extreme Freedom.
Yeah, Extreme Freedom, and I was in his mastermind as well.
The boardroom?
Yep.
Oh, you were in the boardroom?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, and so I'll give credit because him and Pat Precourt, between those two, they gave two pieces of advice. One is, and I'll share it with everyone here as well. One is when you look at what you're making from let's just say, on every deal you make $10,000 per deal, then it's how many deals do you really need to do per month to equate to your monthly salary? Or let's not even count monthly salary. Can you pay your bills? Then it's like, okay, if you spent 40 hours a week doing that, how much more can you make?
Yeah.
So that's one thing they said. And then the other thing, which is almost even more impactful, is make your decisions based on faith instead of fear, because you just gotta have faith in yourself that you can go make it happen, versus the fear that I'm gonna lose all this income that's steady.
Right. That's huge. A lot harder to do when you're married with kids.
Yes.
Right. When I quit, I had full faith and confidence in myself because I was always kind of irrationally confident. But I didn't have a wife and I didn't have kids. So when I was at Intel, everyone was like, "You're so lucky.
Yeah.
You don't have these responsibilities. You can do it. You're young, you're single, whatever. So I think that's even more impactful, like you said that, right? Because people that have responsibilities, it's a harder leap to take.
Oh, yeah. And that's why I said you got to have your significant other on board.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and people always ask me, like, how do you do it? Because they see, especially when I started in real estate, they were like, do you really have a wife? And kids? Because we see you, like, everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, but when I start doing things, I kind of get obsessed.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm going to learn. That's my profile,
mm-hmm.
right? My PI profile says, yeah, I'm just going to try and learn everything I can.
You're taking the Colby test?
I've not taken the Colby
All
test.
right, well, you got to do that. You're going to nerd out. You got to really nerd out. Come on.
Well, that PI is scary accurate.
You know, it's extremely accurate. There's no question about that. And if you guys want to take the PI test, shoot me a DM, shoot me a message. I can definitely hook you guys all up with that. I signed up based off Charles's referral.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did you quit exactly?
So it was about 3 years ago this month.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I'll tell you, it was kind of a little weird, right? Because, you always think about what are you going to do first? And in the back of my mind, it was like, this is a little odd, but I was like, to my wife, I was like, let's just go have lunch the day after. And, like, I just want to have a drink. Like, just because I see people, you go to lunch, a lot of times it's like, what do those people do for a living? So I was like, I'm going to go and, I'll just have one margarita.
There are these people out there that actually eat lunch during the day?
Yeah. So we did that. That was always my memory of the first day of independence, so to speak.
Gotcha.
She used to ask me, I was like, hey, before, she's like, what are you going to do after you used to, that was your life for like 17 years, right?
17 years?
Yeah. I lived and breathed IT.
Yeah.
So then I was like, well, I was kind of joking with her, but not really. I was like, what I'm going to do, and it's kind of funny, but I'm going to be the Carpool Dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been the Carpool Dad ever since.
Which means?
Like, so every morning I drop off the kids and I help out in the carpool line.
Mm-hmm. So, like, you're picking up, like, neighborhood kids?
No. I'm just dropping the kids off at school and opening doors to let the kids out.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
I was just like, I'm going to volunteer somewhere. I'm like, that's...
Oh, at the school?
At the school, yes.
Gotcha, not your kids?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, drop off the kids, and then help open doors so that the kids can make it.
Interesting. Haim talks about that. His thing is about, his passion is about spending time with the kids.
Yep.
And I was joking with him, like, they might think he's unemployed or homeless, how much time he has for his kids.
Yeah, no. And it's actually kind of neat because it's like I actually get time with them every morning where it's, and we do a couple things like nowadays I have them say what they're grateful for every day.
You do?
Oh, yeah. So I'm trying to instill that in them a little bit of, what I'm trying to do, which is, it helps me too because then they'll remind me and that, hey, we got to do that. And then the other thing that I told them to do as well is don't let me get on my phone because I'm bad about getting on my phone. So now they remind me, get off the phone.
That's good. And, I think listening to your story is I have a lot of, I never worked the 80, 90 hours a week. I was working like 30 hours a week in Intel. I had a really comfortable situation. But what was important to me was creating a business so I have more time for my kids. And my parents did an incredible job. I'm incredibly grateful for them. But they were never there.
Right.
So that was for me, like I need to create a business so that I can be there for the kids, so I can drop the kids off. I don't open the doors, but I drop them off.
Yes.
Right? So very cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, it's kind of surprising. Like, honestly, when I left, it probably took me 3 months before I told my mom. Just because I wasn't sure how she would take it.
Yeah.
Because my dad had passed away a while back. But I called her up and said, hey, just so you know, don't have the corporate job anymore. Her response was, good. You work too much. You were stressed out too much, or you just look like you were working too much. So I'm like,
that's the worst, right? To look like you were working too much.
Yeah.
Okay, so you quit. Now you're going into it, right? Now you've got all this newfound time. You bought 80 hours.
Yep.
Time. What was that like? So
it was really good. I mean, right? So then I started building up. building up a, what I'd call a proper business, right? To where it's, where, marketing properly, at the time, right? I mean, it was a lot of direct mail back then. Marketing, right? Doing deals and just trying to do things so you can scale. So that was most of 2017. And for me, right, 2018, I went through a lot more personal stuff. So then it was I almost viewed that as almost definitely the second half of the year, kind of like a little bit of a lost year, just because of a lot of things that I had going on.
Right.
And so then this year, it's almost like a revitalization for me. And a lot of people who know me, they've definitely noticed a big difference, especially of what I'm doing now versus, or even how I've evolved from even the beginning of the year. Even I'm completely different than when we first met at We Live in Dallas.
So let's talk about that. What's the journey, and what was the cause for that?
So so the cause of that was just kind of some business dealings that I was in, and it's just kind of it probably might not be good to talk about that right now. But so that kind of led me to kind of being even more kind of almost my natural personality. If you look at my PI test, is I'm reserved and I'm very quiet, and I'm just the back of the room type of guy.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people who know me in Houston, they see me. There's two people in particular. They'll see me at an event and they'll come up to me. It's like, "Hey Charles, we don't go to events very often, but if we know we want to find you, we know where to look. The back of the room, kind of blending in with the furniture." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." So then, but I've started to come out a little bit more in terms of, I think the impetus of kind of pushing ahead was then I started focusing on, okay, I want to scale. That's kind of one of the drivers. Towards the end of last year, I was like, I'm going to do whatever I got to do to start scaling up.
Yeah.
And, so this year I've personally probably spent more in training than I have probably in the last 2 years combined. Because I started to go into different events and also to network and also to figure out how to grow this business kind of as fast as I can.
Yeah.
Because, if people haven't noticed out there, like the game's definitely changed. Things I was doing probably a year and a half ago.
It doesn't work anymore.
Completely different now.
Yeah.
I characterize it as what I was doing a year and a half ago was kind of old school stuff. And now it's like all the new school stuff.
Right.
And so, I'm aggressively just trying to go after as much as I can right now and grow. Yeah. Because one thing I also say is, I think you talk a lot about PPC back in the good old days.
Oh man, those are great days.
Yes. And I always look back I look back at that, right, the 2015 range, and I was getting probably leads for $15, right? And nowadays you might get a click for $15. And, when me and some of my buddies who we did a lot of PPC back then, well, what we thought was a lot of PPC back then, we look back at that now and we're like, we should have went all in.
Yeah.
Like, just not double down, just triple down. Just dump everything into that and let it fly.
Right.
And, I always look back at that and say, I don't want to say that again about this market.
So one thing you talked about, and this is going to be a completely shameless plug on my part here, but you said you spent a lot on seminars, events, whatever. So you were here with Elizabeth 4 months ago.
Yes.
What were your big takeaways when you went to that?
Yeah. So the big takeaways for that is, and I mentioned to you, and probably haven't shared this too far publicly, but what I got out of that, like, I think it was Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, it was really poor planning on my part.
This is okay.
I'm an action taker, not a details person.
Yeah. So the day I got back from the event, I was like, I changed all of my text message to the format that you guys have.
Yeah.
When I see something that I'm like, it makes sense and resonates with me, I'm like, I'm going to go do it.
Right.
So then the very next day, we changed all the scripts, right? Retrained everybody to use these scripts. And then, every so often afterwards, I would ask them, I was like, hey, how is it working? I'd ask the angels that, and they're like, the scripts are much better, and they have more meaningful conversations with people. I'm like, perfect. That's
right.
what I would expect from the scripts that you guys have.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of night and day. Because I mentioned to you, I've gone to other sales training, and and the sales training is, they're kind of similar. But what I told you, and I was speaking to you honestly back then, because I even still feel the same way. It's like your scripts were just much more efficient.
Yeah.
Meaning, right, instead of 30 minutes conversation, it was like, okay, 5 minutes, and it's like to the point where it accomplished the same thing, but it was just much more condensed, and then that way it's like you can have more conversations.
Right, way more conversations per hour without losing opportunities.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah. So I highly recommend and I've told quite a number of people. Just ask, go to Steve's stuff so you can get his scripts.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that because I'm here. Most people who know me are like, I'm not going to plug something or say something's good if I don't believe in it.
Right.
Because I got people calling me from all over the place asking me my opinion about stuff because they know I'm going to give an accurate answer that's unbiased because that's just kind of how it is. The other thing I would also say about your event, and I probably even mentioned this to you as well, is one thing that's a little different about your event that I found was a lot of the people that I met there, right, I still keep in contact with. I mean, a lot of them.
Yeah.
I mean, a bigger percentage than I probably say at other places.
Yeah.
And also, right, look, my personality is I'm, a little bit more reserved, so it's even harder for me to connect with people. But one thing I found out with your event was, it was just really, and I think when we talked about it, it was kind of like it's who you end up resonating with, that's who you end up attracting.
Right.
So, one thing I encourage to folks, if you're going out to networking or going to events, it's not just to learn, right? I probably get as much value from learning from other people as I do from the event itself.
Right.
And you make good connections. I mean, Stratton, JR, Michael, I mean, we're chatting a lot.
Yeah, and they're all crushing it.
Yeah, oh yeah. We talk a lot.
So one thing you talked about was more time working on scaling now.
Yep.
So now you got this event, wholesaling.
Yes.
So what is that about?
So wholesaling is it's going to be now 4 days of content. So 3 days, we're going to have a lot of great speakers like yourself that's coming. Rafael Vargas, Lee Kearney, Nick Perry, a whole bunch of people who are actually in the business.
Yeah.
And we're going to come and tell you kind of from almost A to Z how to scale your business. And the way we kind of envisioned it and built it was, I'm actively scaling. Elizabeth is actively scaling.
Yeah.
Ricardo's actively scaling. So we brought in people basically like we want to learn from, and we're like, okay, we'll just invite the rest of the country too.
That's kind of like how my podcast started, right? So let's talk about Rafael Vargas, right, from Florida. Well, he's in Florida. He's in multiple places.
Yeah.
So what is someone gonna get from seeing Rafael on stage?
So from Rafael, he's gonna teach you how to pick markets and just dominate them.
Yeah.
Like I'm one of his students as well, and I've literally become a data scientist because of him.
Yeah.
Is watching how he picked markets and right down to zip codes. I'm like, oh yeah, all right, that definitely resonates with me. I'm like, I'm a data guy, so I'm like, yeah.
And then Nick Perry.
What
will they get from listening to Nick Perry?
So Nick Perry's, they're going to get hiring. Right, everywhere I go across the country, I'm having trouble hiring.
Yeah. So
Nick Perry has it on autopilot. It's like he just shows up on I think Tuesdays and Thursdays to interviews, and he just says yes or no. And as a matter of fact, him being so close to Houston, I've gone to his office a couple of times in the last few weeks to actually get that implemented. So I'm actively using what he's going to teach already, and it's I've got a full-time person who's just taking care of interviewing.
Yeah. That's funny. I'm actually in the market. Met with a recruiter yesterday to tell him to go find me a recruiter. Oh. So yeah, you got that, and then there was who was another name you mentioned?
So Lee Kearney's coming. Lee, he's done 7,500 transactions.
Okay.
Yeah, he's done a few $500 million of real estate. you know. So he's going to focus on the recession and what he's doing.
So people because right now we're all cutting our teeth in the good times.
Yes.
So he's talking about what to expect.
Yes.
When bad things happen.
Yeah, and how to prepare.
Right.
And also another person who's going to talk a little bit about that along those lines as well is Daniel Chad Moore. He's out of Dallas, and an interesting thing he's going to talk about is he's going to actually walk us through the market cycles and what you should be doing in each part of the cycle.
Yeah.
So for instance, if we're at the peak, then rehabbing probably not going to be the best thing to do.
Not the safest thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so also we got Don Costa, who I'm in a mastermind with him, and that guy is just dripping with knowledge.
Yes.
So what's he going to talk about?
So he's going to talk about how to virtually wholesale and fit your lifestyle.
Yeah, kind of like what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm all about. I still have a couple. I'm not there yet, but a couple more things to do, and then I don't want to be doing 89 hours a week.
Right. So going back to earlier, you were talking about Facilitator, right? So you're known as the Facilitator in Houston.
Yeah.
How did you get that nickname?
So what people used to always ask me, what do you do? And the standard answer is always wholesaler, a rehabber, or a landlord. But at the end of the day, I think all of us as real estate investors, we should really think of ourselves as facilitators. And if everyone can become a facilitator, which to me means helping people out or making sure things get done. Yeah. Because nobody gets happy, nobody gets paid unless a deal gets done. The seller's not going to be happy if the deal busts. Buyer's not going to be happy. Lender's not going to be happy. Title company. So if we can all become facilitators, then that will just help everybody. And in some cases, I won't even make money helping facilitate something. It's somebody needs something that I might be able to help them with. Then I'm like, okay, here, go talk to this person. Yeah. Right. And then, to me, all that stuff, right? You don't have to get paid on everything, right? You will help people out. It'll always come back 20-fold. And then, I get a lot of joy from actually helping people. Yeah. I find myself more joy when someone else does a deal just because of maybe something I said or what have you. And they just told me later, I'm like, wow,
it's incredibly fulfilling. Yeah. 100% it's fulfilling. Okay, so there's some questions here. Ryan asks, best way to hire a VA. What site would you go to? So
the way that I hired my first one was I used a service. And I think they may have gone through several names. So, I'll tell you the ones that I know of that are out there. Because I think I use my Outdesk, but I think they are actually more geared towards realtors.
Yeah, they're towards traditional. Yeah. I've used them in the past.
Yeah, so there's a Rocket Station, Robert Nickel. And actually, my first VA was through whatever company he had with my Outdesk. There's Riva as well. And you can also obviously do Upwork and things like that. Yeah. Here's my one suggestion. If you're going to use a service or even whenever you're hiring, it's okay to say no. Yeah. I would tell you say no more than you say yes, because a lot of times you don't just trust what a service is going to say that says, hey, this is a great VA, be phenomenal for your business. I'm like, no, I went through quite a bit of interviewing before I found the one.
There's something that we learned from Darren Hardy, and if it's not a hell yeah, then it's a hell no.
Yes, exactly. I find myself saying that to people now too, and it's sometimes even when I'm involved, I'm like, if you're not saying hell yes, then don't include me. Right. You'll thank me later. Yeah. All right. Don't include me.
So Ryan also wants to know what kind of marketing are you doing right now?
So I do a lot of I do internet marketing. So
which means
a lot of SEO. So one of my sites ranks pretty well even in Houston. And also I do a lot of telemarketing, mostly on the SMS texting side. Because I think, I'll tell you that's just a very cheap lead source.
Very cheap, very efficient.
Exactly. Yep. And it just what I recommend to people is, my opinion is, and I've said it a lot, is we probably have by now probably a 15-month time window where you can actually do that.
Yeah.
And then, RVMs are starting to get taken away. And, so obviously, before I say anything else, make sure, I'm not a lawyer, so talk to your lawyers. But I will tell you, I'm not going to make the same mistake I did in 2015 and not try to go.
Not cash in.
Not go after what I always say is 80 million.
Stratton, what's up, Stratton? He wants to know if you hire someone to evaluate new markets for you.
I do not. I actually do that myself. So one of the things that I learned from Raphael is how to go pick markets and how to go pick even zip codes within markets. Yeah. So a lot of that analysis, it goes back a little bit to my profile, which is I'm a data guy. I'm an analytical person, and I kind of like to do that stuff. So I'm going to gravitate to that.
Right. No, that makes complete sense. Ryan wants to know what script are you using? Steve's. That's right. It's our scripts.
Yes.
Which Max and I created, right?
Yes.
It's not just me.
Yeah.
So let's see, what else is there? So we already talked about what service you guys are using for VA. So Elizabeth wants to know what profile I was. Mine was independent. Is that the exact word?
I think it was independent or individual.
Individualist. There you go.
Individualist.
Individualist, Elizabeth, which means I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I even looked at it. I was like, our profiles are pretty similar, except for those kind of two things. Delegation is a little harder for me. It's much better now, though.
Yeah.
Here's the one thing
because you can kind of grow into that.
Yes, because it's kind of like I'm much more comfortable with. As soon as I know how it works, then I can slowly delegate. Right. And honestly, I parallel corporate with real estate. I made the same mistakes in corporate that I did in real estate, which is I was told in corporate, you got to delegate. You got to delegate. And it probably took me 2 years. Like I had a big team, but it was like my manager kept on saying, you need to delegate.
Yeah.
But the minute I realized that I was holding my team back because I wasn't delegating, I was done. I was like, okay. This is right. I grabbed 3 of them. I was like, "This is your team now. Between the 3 of y'all is yours, and I'm here to help you.
Right.
I'm just going to facilitate whatever you need. I'm just air traffic control. Right? I'm going to clear the runway. Everything else is yours, but I will be in the back. I will, and I'll provide all the cover you need, and I'll train you.
Yeah.
But then I look back in real estate, and I made the same mistake.
Right.
I hired my first VA 4 years ago.
But the stakes are higher in your own business.
Yes. Oh, right? 100%.
Like you screw up in a corporate world, like whatever, the company lost a couple $1 million, whatever.
Oh yeah, in real estate, yeah. But I'd also say I learned, I made the same mistake because it goes back to my natural profile, which is I'm going to kind of be a little less risk averse and also try to do everything myself.
Yeah.
So then I hired one VA 4 years ago. Between that and end of last year, I had one other VA, but then that's about it. And then, I mean, I had another team in between, but, end of last year, I hired another VA because I couldn't deal with the texting. It was just too much.
Yeah.
And then, so, fast forward now, I've got like 9 VAs. Most of them hired within the last probably 2.5 months.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm in massive kind of ramp up mode.
Ben Naman wants to know, what is your cost per deal on text messaging, including all the data pulling and skip tracing per deal?
Okay, so that's a good question. I'll answer it this way because I even get because I use Lead Sherpa, which is a really good platform, and the owner Jason had asked me if I'd provide stats to his group, his Facebook group, and I said I'll take a look. I looked at it. I was like, Jason, you realize that my stats would mean absolutely nothing to a new person, just given kind of how the software works. And I explained why. And he's like, yeah, your stats probably, just because of the volume I send, as well as just the underlyings of how the software works, my stats wouldn't make any difference because I would expect a new person on the platform to do a lot better than I would. There's just some nuances in there. So
because of the volume.
Because of the volume, and because also I send a lot of follow-ups. Meaning, right? I mean, if I send, for us, it's always if I'm hitting something for the first time, right? The response rates are pretty good, right? Somewhere in 30% range. If I hit them again the next month, then it's probably like, maybe 10%. Then I'm happy. But now I'm like, because I'm scaling up, I'm like, I don't even look at that anymore. I'm just like, just send as much as I can, in as efficient way as I can, and then that's it.
So do you have an overall?
Yeah. So what I did do is, because one of my friends asked me probably a week or two, a couple weeks ago, to help him out with some marketing, because he knows I do a lot of texts.
Yeah.
So he asked me to help him out. So and I think he was okay with me sharing some of these numbers, because this is much more accurate for someone who's starting out than anything I'm doing. So I think his cost was, I'm talking about all-in costs, getting the data, getting skip tracing, I think even labor costs and the texting. It was about between $50 and $70 per lead, and it was probably about $1,500 to $2,000 per deal, somewhere in that range. Because I think it was two different data sets. So
those aren't beautiful numbers. They're good numbers.
Yeah,
but they're not sexy numbers.
Yeah, but his spread is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, his spread is just going to be ridiculous.
Awesome.
And the other thing I would probably say about that as well is just give it a little while, because the follow-ups, right? There's more money coming in the follow-ups.
Oh, absolutely. I can't speak for the total cost per deal, because we also cold call an RVM. But I know just from texting alone on our operation, when we last looked at it, we were under $400
per deal.
Per deal.
And does that include labor?
That does not include cost of sale, right? Because we pay commission.
Okay.
That does not include cost of sale, because they're not salaried, right?
Right.
They're commissioned. So if we include cost of sale, it's going to go way up, because these guys are making 20% on these deals.
Yeah.
Let's see what other questions we got here. So Samir asks, you want to just repeat it? What company you use for text messaging?
Lead Sherpa.
Yep. Yeah. So Jason Nickel, I've met him at a different mastermind, and he's all about making it better. In fact, he asked me, like, what's it going to take for you to switch? I was like, dude, just take what you see here in Text Magic and put that on Lead Sherpa, and I'll switch. That's it. Yeah. But it works for a lot of people, right?
Yeah,
Lead Sherpa. It works. There are a lot of like powerhouses using it. Just for the way we run our operation, it just didn't make sense. Okay, so question here is, how is your operation? Because Houston's massive.
Yep.
And I've met a lot of people out there, a lot of them. So how is your operation different than your peers and competitors in the Houston market?
I mean, I think the one thing that I know I'm looking to do is take a much more data-driven approach. And some other people may be doing that, but I don't really hear a whole lot of people talking about that. So by data-driven approach, I mean kind of with what I'm doing, I go target zip codes now, because I always say, right, the motivated list, even if it's, let's just say 10%, then that's, if in Harris County, the biggest county in Houston, is about 1.1 million houses, single-family houses. At 10%, that's about 110,000 houses, and that's not enough, because texting is, for me, it's just a big data hog. Like right now, I'm probably skip tracing somewhere around 50,000 records a month. So you run out of property pretty quick.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to go by zip codes. That's what I do, and I go target the zip codes that are best suited for my business model.
So you're going on a general list based off of a zip code?
Yes. And you tie it down to the zip codes that are ideal for whatever you're trying to do. For me, and I'd probably recommend this probably anywhere across the country, is, right, what's going to sell the fastest, which is definitely in my market, it's going to be like anything under probably 220, right? Anything above 250, 300 is kind of like, So do I want to target zip codes that are in the 300, 400 range? Probably not. Not right now, especially in the market that we're doing. No. So find the lower price zip codes, and I just do blanket targeting.
Gotcha. So one thing that was interesting was that we were all hanging out in Dallas, and there were multiple remarks that these Phoenix people are weird, right? Like they're hanging out, and even the questions we got was like, "Oh, you guys are all on the same company. That's cool." We're like, "No, we're all in the streets. We're trying to kill each other in the houses, but outside the houses, we all hang out. In fact, we got Jesse, Evo, Brent Daniels, Pace, and Rafael Cortez. They're all in the same building.
Oh wow!
In Phoenix.
Okay.
Right. You should definitely stop by there after this. But that's not the relationship, because I'll ask you like, "Hey, what's going on with this guy? What's going on with the guy?" You're like, "Who?" So what about this guy? Don't know who that is. There's not that same dynamic, but you're trying to make that.
Yeah.
You're one of your goals for wholesaling, I believe. You talked to Elizabeth. You want to create this camaraderie.
Yes, absolutely.
So you want to talk about what you guys are trying to create there?
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of I've talked to you a bit about it as well. It's I look at what people are doing in Phoenix, and it's like because last time I was here for your event, I showed up at the Keighley office. Right, spoke with Jamil, and I didn't really have a plan. Right, I was just like, I'm just gonna go hang out with Jamil, and then go figure it out from there. Yeah. Next thing you know, Pace is showing up, and Pace is like, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing for the rest of the day?" I was like, "Well, Elizabeth's coming in, and I'm gonna go meet her in the afternoon." And he's like, "Okay, so you got nothing? All right, let's go." Right, so I hop in the car with him, and I spend the whole day with him, and he's taking me around. He takes me over to Annie, Evo, and Jesse's place, the Batch folks, and I'm like, this is just weird, Yeah. We don't really do that in Houston. I mean, there might be small pockets, but definitely like wholesaling. That's what it's kind of all about, is to build a community. Because for us, what we're doing is like, we're not, because people ask me like regularly, like, are you like, what are you selling? I'm like, well, we're not selling anything off of wholesaling. And then like, what are you selling? I'm like, no, we're not selling anything. It's like, none of us run coaching programs. We're not selling a mastermind at the end of it. That's what people always ask. I'm like, no, we're just doing it because
there's no upselling.
Yeah, no upselling, right? And we've kind of made that clear to everyone. It's no upselling. It's how do you build it's basically building a good community. Because I want to be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, Joe, can you go look at this house for me? And have people who are like, yeah, I'll go. Right. Without question. It's like, yeah, and people that we can trust. Because what I see out of the Phoenix folks is, wow. I mean, it's just like you pick up the phone and you get an answer. The thing I remember distinctly was Pace going over to the Annie and Eva's office and saying he was, kind of tweaking some things with his cold calling script. Annie's like, hang on one second. She goes and prints out a printout of their script and says, here, take a look at this, and you do what you want with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. It's kind of crazy. Moises Gonzalez wants to know, where are you pulling your lists and skip tracing them?
So I use a couple of different places for lists, and actually right now I'm in I really want to target almost the whole country. So I'm actively going to look for where I can go get the most data for the most appropriate price. Yeah. So if anybody knows of any, hit me up.
I would say probably Batch.
Yes. And actually, that's who I skip trace with.
Yeah.
One of the things I also tell people is, people will hear me say this: don't ever buy bad data. Trust me, I've bought bad data.
Like that is app.
I regret it. I'm like, and it's hard to get out of my system now. And not that I couldn't probably go do it. I could probably go figure it out, but I don't really want to spend the hours I think it's going to take to go figure it out. At some point, I probably will, but or I'll just go skip everything again. Yeah. But yeah, and as a matter of fact, someone asked me to test something earlier this week, and on Monday, I was like, yeah, no, not good. Stay with Batch. Go to Batch.
Very awesome. Okay, so what does your organization look like today?
So today, we probably didn't explain a whole lot, but I also do a lot of joint ventures because I'm of the opinion now I don't really want to go to houses. I'm more likely to go to a house if somebody asks me to go help them than go on my own deal. that's just. I'm just like sometimes I'll go to houses with people, and then just my buddies, and they'll be like, I've gone to houses with Ricardo. Ricardo looks at me, he's like, "You don't really like houses, do you?" I'm like, "No, I mean they all kind of look the same to me."
Yeah.
I'm like, and I'm not one to say, "Oh, we can go knock this wall down, do all this other stuff." I can if I think about it, but I'm like, that's not what I really want to do. So from an acquisition and disposition side, then I'm doing a lot of JVs. From everything else, I mean, I've got 9 VAs now, and I'm kind of actually trying to ramp that up even a lot more.
Yeah.
One thing I would probably tell everyone, right, because we talked a little bit about VAs, is you got to build a culture with them to where they want to work with you, and then they'll work hard for you as well. Because, I mean, I've had experience in my corporate life of where I ran teams in Asia, in India, and in Singapore. So I kind of know the culture as well, so I have a little benefit there. But you have to include them. Right? For me, they're a part of the team. It's not like, cheap labor. No way.
Oh, yeah, that's why you're flying her here.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And, so you want to make sure that they're engaged. The first thing I always tell them, any new person that joins, is like, look, I expect you to do your job very well, but I also expect you to provide some feedback. Tell me what I'm not doing right. Tell me what we as a group are not doing right. And, it takes a little while for it to actually sink into them, because they're kind of used to, just the culture is kind of used to.
Well, I think a lot of them are used to being just abused, right? I know I had one that I hired, and she was great. She had to leave for medical reasons. But when I hired her, I was like, so you cold call right now already. You use a triple line dialer, and you've got scripts, and you have training. Why are we talking? And she's like, I work with this other company, and they pay $6 an hour, and they were buying houses, but they couldn't pay me on time. I was like, what? So. So they're used to being taken for granted. So if you just treat them well, they're loyal to a fault.
Oh yeah. Actually, when we were earlier, that's what I was doing. It's payroll. I was like, and I even told them, it's like, look, because I've been dealing with a couple of payroll. Just like, I just want to make it efficient to where it's, at the end of the day, less time for me. And I'm like, I've been trying to do a couple things and also make it cost efficient for them as well, in terms of whatever the exchange rates and whatnot. And it's been a struggle for me for the last probably 2.5 months. And I got on a call with Antoine last night, because he's really big on VAs.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, and I was like, hey, I have this problem. I'm trying to deal with payroll, and I told him what I was doing. He's like, don't do that. He's like, just right. I know you want to automate and make everything easy, but he's like, that's just better pen and paper. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, it makes good sense, because what he's telling me, I'm like, I'm dealing with that right now. I'm like.
So what was his response?
His response, because we use Hubstaff to kind of do a lot of the tracking, and it's like, to align everything up, then you're going to end up making manual adjustments all over the place.
Oh, I see. That's why you're saying pen and paper.
Yeah, and then he's like, don't do that. Just have a spreadsheet. I'm like, okay,
You're overcomplicating it.
Yes, I'm over-engineering.
Joe Gonzalez wants to know how you're dealing with the new cold calling laws passed in Texas.
So, I don't know. I've heard about the new laws, but I haven't actually addressed it, right? In terms of anything like that, it's kind of like, obviously I'm not a lawyer, but everything's risk versus reward. And I don't know enough about it right now to be able to give you an opinion. It's just kind of like bandit signs. I mean, they're legal if you get the permits, but at least that's what a cop told me once.
Yeah.
At midnight.
And Warner Quiroga, I apologize if I'm butchering your names. How are you dispositioning properties?
So dispositioning right now, a lot of it is actually through relationships. Not as
in you're calling them?
Yeah. More so than blasting nowadays.
Okay, so how many deals are you doing a month right now?
Not enough. Yeah.
Looking for a little more specificity here.
Yeah, so it's not enough. I mean, I'm usually one that kind of keeps those things close to the vest for a number of reasons. But, because one of the things is, and I'll give this advice to people as well, because sometimes when people, we always see things get posted on Facebook in terms of, right, whoever's doing what, 20 deals a month. And sometimes that discourages people. Sometimes it inspires people. What I always tell people about that is use those as goals, right? So if somebody's saying that, hey, they did 20 deals this month, I'm like, cool, congratulations. I don't want people to look at that and say, I'm not doing enough, because it can be discouraging, because you're like, even me some days I'm like, God, I'm not doing enough. I'm always not doing enough, but I'm like, God, they're doing that much. But then you just have to turn around and just kind of be positive.
Well, like you said, it gives you a target, something to shoot for.
Exactly.
So between data, skip tracing, texting, VAs, everything, like, what is your overall, like, monthly, like, what are you out per month?
So right now it's probably in the neighborhood of about 15 per month.
That's not bad.
Yeah, no.
Trying to go nationwide, that's not bad at all.
Texting's cheap.
Texting's super cheap.
Texting's cheap, and the only thing about texting is it's just manually intensive. You have to, right, and you have to have someone good who can process and process quickly. Because I literally ran my own texting when I first started on Lead Sherpa, because that's my personality. I got to try it out.
Yeah, master it first.
Yeah, and then it is time consuming. And it can be, my nature is like, I'll be up, well, not all night, but up until like 8 o'clock. It's like constantly texting people. And it's just, so I get obsessed with stuff like that.
So how many text messages are you sending per day as an operation?
As an operation? So right now, it's probably around the 8,000 range. And so the thing about Lead Sherpa is, right, it's someone is manually clicking a button 8,000 times.
Now, not someone's clicking a button. Someone's getting, what is that? Repetitive
carpal tunnel.
Someone's getting carpal tunnel.
Yeah.
You better make sure you get good workman's comp.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it's actually not too bad. I've done it before. I'm like, you can get through 100 pretty quick.
Right.
So anybody who does texting, it's just manually intensive.
And Warner, again, wants to know, how many texts are you sending until you get a deal?
So I think, the best stats is what I helped my buddy with, and it was probably, for that one, it's probably in the neighborhood of 7. Was it about 7,000? But I think that's actually a little bit on the high side. And again, it was kind of their first rodeo with texting. So I expect there's also a couple deals kind of in the pipe. They just haven't signed yet. So, it's always, you're not going to get it first time always, but I expect them to get a couple more out of that. The thing that I will tell you, that the feedback that he did provide was it's way better than cold calling, because they were doing massive cold and massive.
I think it's a balance. I think you got to do both.
Yeah.
To maximize the data you get. So Daniel Martinez wants to know, what is the next level and where are you going?
So for me, the next level is definitely nationwide. Depending on whose data and numbers you're looking at, then there's 80 million single-family houses out there in the U.S. With the marketing channels that we have available to us now, aka text. There's probably no reason why you can't go target as much of them as you can.
So one of these days, I'm going to get a text message from Charles.
You will. When I come to Phoenix, yes, you're probably going to get multiple text messages. But yeah, that's the thing, right? Is one of the things I've really learned this year, and I point it back to one specific sign, right? I went to Rafael Vargas event. He had a sign up there that said something to the effect of, if you want to go big, then you can't think small.
Yeah.
So literally that sign, then I'm just like, I'm just on a different path now.
You're shoving all your chips on the table.
Yeah, I'm not going to make the 2015 mistake again.
Yeah. So Elizabeth Navarrete wants to know what's going on. Elizabeth,
What's up, Elizabeth?
How are you dealing or competing with iBuyers?
With iBuyers, I met an iBuyer the other week, and I'm actually trying to get a hold of him to see how we can do business together.
Yeah.
So iBuyers, they are kind of a different breed. Well, I'll just say right now they are, because they've got a specific buy box, where their buy box is newer houses,
stucco tile.
Yeah. So
probably not in a flood zone.
Yeah, exactly. And and probably not a whole lot of repairs. So if you take out the fact that they're really after kind of the newer houses, then you should still have kind of free reign.
Yeah, those are houses that probably should go retail anyway.
Exactly. And I've talked to people who've wanted to go to iBuyers, and I'm like, well, if they can offer you that price, right? I also use the Steve script as well. So did Zillow come out to your house and make an offer?
Yeah, we do the score shirts policy. I love the score shirts policy. Jason Toledo has a great question as well. Is what's the number one thing you wish you had known when you started your real estate investment journey?
I think the one thing, let me rephrase it because it's a better answer. One thing I would have done differently is be okay with getting help as soon as possible. Because it's not that I didn't get help, but I'm the type of personality where, I try to do everything myself, right? The first couple months, I just YouTubed and, went to meetings and, my personality, I was kind of, back of the room corner type of guy. So I probably should have done what I do now, which is, like last night, right? Perfect example. I had an issue with, how to pay VAs. So I was like, Antoine, help me, right? And I get a spot answer from someone who's done it. Right. Whereas in the past,
and responsive.
Yeah, exactly. And that's probably what I would do. That's why actually I even purposely go to a lot of national events, is because I want to go meet people from across the country who are doing the business, and I can connect with. Because I don't have a problem like calling like JR and Stratton and Michael. Every now and then I'm like, hey, help me with this.
Right. What's your biggest struggle right now?
Biggest struggle right now is I know one of the things that my struggle is I want to do too much, where it's like
your eyes are too big?
What's that?
Like your eyes are too big or too many tasks?
Too many things I want to go tackle, and I have to limit down what I'm able to do, because I always think I can do it all. Where it's like, okay, yeah, I can do that, because my profile is like, I'm just going to try and be an expert at everything. Yeah. Where it's like, yeah, I can probably do that, but then you start to run out of time. And I think most people kind of know me that I don't really sleep a whole lot. Yeah. So it's like, that for me, prioritizing what I really work on, that's one thing I'm really working on. For instance, in the past, I used to use Getting Things Done. I think it's Tim Allen. His way of doing, or I forget what his name is, but using that, when I used to use that, I was spot on. My life was a lot more crystal clear on what I'm working on. But now it's kind of like almost I've got a little too much going on. So that's the thing. If I had to do anything, I'm working on that.
I love it. That's I have a friend, and we were talking about some of the challenges she's having, and I was telling her like, well, why don't you just start your own mortgage company, And I'm glad she said no, because I don't have time to help start a mortgage company.
Oh yeah.
But man, I would have loved to.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna let you think about what you want to leave as a lasting message, while I make a couple of quick announcements. So guys, Charles is putting on this event, right? Wholesaling Live. I'll be speaking there along with some of the other guests we talked about earlier: Don Costa, Rafael Vargas, Lee Kearney, just a lot of really big names, adding a lot of value. And like like we said, there'll be no selling from the stage, and I think that's huge because we've all been to those events where that happens. So go to wholescalinglive.com, put in RED for 25% off, and I look forward to seeing you guys all there. In fact, let me know in the comments below if you guys are coming. I look forward to seeing you guys all there. And then I'll also be in Biloxi, Mississippi, October 5th through 27th for Real Estate Roundup Live. If you guys want to check that out, go to bit.ly/RER Live. And then I'll be finishing the year in New Orleans, Louisiana with Chris Rude, December 6th through 8th. If you want to check that out, go to bit.ly/2019skill. So got a busy schedule ahead of me. So with that, last thoughts.
All right. So first thing, I do want to congratulate you, Steve. I think
thank you.
I think it was last week you hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
So keep up the good work. For all the listeners out there, I'd say, if you find a podcast that resonates with you, especially one of Steve's, definitely like it, tag a friend who needs it, comment, smash that share button, and smash that subscribe button as well, because we want him to continue bringing great folks on. Yeah. One thing I would leave people with is I would probably say anything is possible, right? Because I've done a lot of things in the past couple months that I would have never imagined doing, like wholesaling. Right? I've always thought about it, but never, right? Once you start going, then, right? And once you start thinking in the mindset of going big, then anything is possible, right? Yeah. And the key is hang out with the right people who will help push you along versus pull you down, right? Yeah. Just hang out with the right people, network with the right people. If you don't have the right people in place now, then maybe go outside of that circle and go find the right people.
Just upgrade a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always improve.
So how can someone get a hold of you?
Probably the best way is probably Instagram, at Best Real Charles. And I do have to thank Steve, Pace, and Elizabeth for making me actually make my first post on Instagram in May.
That was your first post? I remember you were going through a struggle. That was your first post?
That was my very first post.
Well, this made a lot more sense.
Yes. And I actually, right, so I got to thank a couple of people as well. I think Edwin from Dallas at We Live is when I actually created my Instagram account. I was sitting at the bar, and right, like true friends who you met for the very first time, because I did meet them for the very first time, they wouldn't let me leave until I created an Instagram account, because they knew what I needed, even though I didn't.
Yeah. So Michael Ray is going to be in Houston.
Oh yeah.
For Wholesaling Live, and we're going to have an intervention.
Oh yeah.
He's not posting enough on Instagram. So
okay, Michael. Yeah, we'll talk. I feel your struggle because I go through the same thing all the time.
And we're going to fix that problem in Houston. So with that, thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. Thanks,
Steve. Appreciate it.